Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Showa Ederie, and if you are here again, thank you very much for coming back. I appreciate you. I am doing a series on forgiveness, and this will be part 2, I believe. And so let's get straight into it. Honestly, let's talk about it. I want to talk about unforgiveness. Unforgiveness, what that is and what that does to you. Sometimes it's hard to move on and forgive when you don't actually see the benefit of forgiveness. You're like, why should I forgive? I'm fine in walking in unforgiveness. So I'm here to clarify what unforgiveness does to you, the person, and hopefully through doing that you'll have an understanding of why one should forgive. So what unforgiveness is that it's a form of bitterness. It's a poison that you are drinking. What unforgiveness does is that it keeps your mind in the things of the past. It doesn't allow you to move forward. It keeps your heart posture in the heart posture that's aligned with the devil, because it's the devil that implants thoughts of you should hate that person, you should be angry with that person, you should be jealous of that person, you should not want anything good for them. It's the devil that plants thoughts like that. Those are not thoughts that are the fruits of the spirit. Okay, in Philippians it talks about thinking of things that are lovely, that are kind, that are good. I don't know what I'll list them of what he says, but there are a certain way of thinking in which produces fruits in your life. Anything that is the opposite of that will produce death. And so unforgiveness is a form of poison. When I say a poison, I mean that because it kills you slowly. It's not something that is obvious to the naked eye, but it's something that is internal. Because your thoughts have a lot of power. So the minute you think something that is negative towards another person, what you're doing is wishing harm on them. So for example, somebody has hurt you, and because of that you want them to die. Because we've all been there. We've all been there. Whereby somebody has offended, somebody has hurt you. Again, family member, friend, it could be whatever. And you wish death on them. It's not actively, but subconsciously you're like, if they died, I'd be fine. That is not a mindset that's of God. That's a mindset of the enemy, because it's the enemy who wants to take lives. God gives life. The enemy wants to kill. Again, in the Bible, it talks about how the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Anything that is aligned with stealing, killing, and destroying, these are attributes of the devil. And so what unforgiveness does, it steals your destiny, because it steals that ability to move forward, that ability to forgive, that ability to turn the other cheek. Unforgiveness doesn't allow us to do that. It holds us backwards. And so when I say unforgiveness is a form of bitterness, it is a form of bitterness because it leaves you in a crippling state. Subconsciously or consciously, it will leave you in a crippling state of actually hatred. And it's a seed. If you're not able to forgive one person, then when somebody else offends you, because again, we are flawed human beings, so people in this life are going to offend you, people are going to harm you, people are going to hurt you. So if you walk in unforgiveness, you won't be able to ever move on when somebody has done you wrong. Then that person could even be somebody who you love. That person could be your husband, that person could be a sibling. But because you walk in unforgiveness, you find it incredibly difficult to let go. And then from there, that is an open door for the enemy. Unforgiveness opens a door that allows the enemy to walk into your life and plant seeds of doubt, plant seeds of discord. The enemy likes to have division in a household. So if you are somebody, for example, you cannot forgive your sibling over something, you cannot forgive your parent, the enemy sees that as an open door to come in and to plant things in your mind. Plant negative thoughts, plant anger, plant sinful thoughts. Ephesians 4:31-32 says, get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave you. Bitterness, rage, anger, slander, forms of malice, that is what's associated with unforgiveness. And these are things that only harm you. It doesn't harm anyone else. It doesn't harm the person that you're not forgiving. It will harm you. And if these are things you struggle with, it's things you take into prayer. You don't try and do this on your own. We do this with the Holy Spirit. That is why the Lord has given us a helper, because he knows to navigate this world, we could not have done it by ourselves. We needed a personal helper. We needed the Holy Spirit inside of us to be able to forgive others, because it's not easy. It comes so quickly. 1 second you can be okay. The next time someone offends you, you can have bitterness inside of you. You can have rage inside of you. But it's an active choice to walk in bitterness. It's an active choice to walk in unforgiveness. Why do I know that? Because it says get rid of all bitterness. It means it's something that you can choose to do today. You can choose to say, I'm going to get rid of this bitterness. I'm going to get rid of this rage. I'm going to get rid of this unforgiveness. I am no longer going to walk in it. It's a choice that you can make. But what unforgiveness does, it makes you think that it's impossible to forgive. When you sit and dwell in unforgiveness, it makes you think that forgiving another person is just too impossible. It's too far-fetched. There's no way I could do it. But that's a lie from the enemy. It's a lie from the enemy to keep you bound. I don't know if you remember the parable of the unforgiven servant. The parable of the unforgiven servant shows how mad humans are, right? So in the parable of the unforgiven servant, there is a man who basically is forgiven because of the large debt by the king. But then he refuses to forgive a fellow servant who owes him a much smaller debt. And if you remember the story, like go back and read it. I believe it's in Matthew 18:21-35. If you go back and read it, what is so mind-boggling about it is that this man done the same thing that the servant did, and he had a larger debt, and he received forgiveness from the king, but he couldn't offer that same forgiveness for the servant. And because of pride, he was unable to forgive. And then what happens after that? The king then learns that this man was not able to be forgiven and then removes his mercy. What this parable of the unforgiven servant is showing us is that God is the king. God has forgiven us for the large debt that we have. And so us as human beings, as his creation, must forgive our fellow human beings for a much smaller thing that they've done to us. By doing that, we are open, like we are accessible to God's mercies. God's mercies are new every morning in our life. The minute you walk in unforgiveness, the Lord is not going to be merciful towards you. He's not going to be merciful towards you. If you take what the unforgiven servant is saying, that story, that parable is saying, the Lord is forgiving unto those who forgive. And so we just need to walk in forgiveness, honestly. We need to walk in forgiveness because the Lord has forgiven us, so we must forgive others. Think of it this way. Ask your heart, pray. I'll do this again. I'm going to have little ways in order for you to understand how do you forgive. A lot of it involves prayer, and through doing that, you will understand that your heart posture needs to now see mankind as God sees them. Once you see mankind as God sees them, you'll realize that they're imperfect beings, and you will understand that actually when they do something towards me, you almost feel sorry for them. That's it. And another thing I wanted to say is that God actually causes us to love our enemies. Wild, I know. Love our enemies. Oh gosh. Sometimes I read that and I'm like, are you serious? Do you know what an enemy is? But of course God does, and he tells us to love them. Again, why? The Creator created us as human beings. He knows what this vessel can take and what it cannot. This vessel doesn't function on unforgiveness. This vessel does not function on hatred. God tells us to love our enemies because it births something within us. It causes us to be free. So I think, and so when he says love our enemies, it means that when somebody has done something to harm us, they have offended us, whatever they have done that we are not happy with, the Lord is actually telling us to love them. To love them, I know, and it's not easy. It's not easy at all, and it's not something I say with the idea that, oh, this is so simple to do, like let's just forgive them or let's just love our enemies. I think it's incredibly hard, but I know that that's why we have the God. We have the God who created heavens and earth. We can tap into the fact that God is our strength. So when things are difficult, we lean on him. I don't plan to forgive people on my own. I have never been able to forgive somebody on my own. Never. I've always had to forgive them through constant prayer and bringing it to the Lord, because it's hurt me, it's cut me deep. I've lost sleep. I've lost friendships. So things happen, but I bring it to the Lord because I understand that he's the only one who can help me forgive. In Romans, it says that if your enemy is hungry, you should feed them. If they're thirsty, you should give them a drink. And I believe it's because God is so concerned with the character of his children. He does not want us to be people that are bitter, that are mean, that our hands are closed. He wants us to get us to a place where no matter what anyone does to us, we treat everyone with love, we treat everyone with respect, and we are like Christ, serving the very people that harm us. Serving the very people that will lead us to our grave. Can you imagine? But to get Christ-like is to get to the depths of these things, which is being able to love your enemy, which is being able to feed them and clothe them. And I believe we all can do it. There are parents who have offended us, who have hurt us, who have not been there for us, but there is still something within us that even if we had our last 100, we would give them half, we would give them something. We don't walk in that much hatred that if they were to ask something of us, we would outright say no. There is still something in us that would do what we could for them. And we need to extend that same mindset to every single person, no matter who they are. Join me in my next video whereby I'm going to talk about how do we forgive. Everything I've said has been great, but now practically show her how do we forgive, because this ain't easy. See you in the next video, which shall be next week. Bye.